This is the Washington Times front page for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. Newly minted House Speaker Mike Johnson has pushed a two-part temporary spending measure across the finish line in his chamber. Susan Ferricchio and Alex Miller report the House passed the bill 336-95 over objections from far-right conservatives. It passed thanks to the support of more than 200 Democrats who were satisfied that it didn't cut out spending and, like Republicans, are eager to avoid a government shutdown. It is expected to pass the Senate before government funding runs out on Friday. Johnson called his approach one that will break the fever that has led Congress to annually rush through a year-end funding bill. The bill funds some federal agencies until January 19th and others, including the Pentagon, through February 2nd. The measure does not include emergency spending for wars in Ukraine and Israel, nor does it fund additional border security that many Republicans had sought. Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett accused former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy of elbowing him in the back while he was being interviewed in the Capitol. Alex Miller and Tom Howe report the incident unfolded while NPR was interviewing Burchett in a Capitol hallway. McCarthy and his security detail appeared, and the former speaker reportedly lunged at Burchett, striking him in the back. Burchett was one of the lawmakers who voted for McCarthy's ouster as speaker. Burchett then chased after McCarthy, saying the lawmaker had no guts. McCarthy denied the accusations. The incident was the most prominent example of tempers flaring in several confrontations across the Capitol in a single day. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin and a union leader nearly got into a brawl during a Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee hearing, prompting the intervention of committee chairman Bernie Sanders. A congressional commission says Chinese President Xi Jinping is preparing his military forces for war and directing the rest of the country to prepare for economic hardships that conflict would bring. Bill Gertz reports the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission's annual report includes an alarming list of indicators that China is preparing for war with the U.S. The report says China now appears to view diplomacy with the United States primarily as a tool for forestalling and delaying U.S. pressure over a period of years, while China moves further down the path of developing its own economic, military, and technological capabilities. The General Services Administration says it can deliver a telework dividend and slash government office space by as much as 30% over the coming years. Stephen Dinan reports GSA head Robin Carnahan told the House Oversight Committee that it's intently focused on right-sizing the government's square footage by up to 30% as employers and workers rethink where and how to deliver services. GSA oversees 370 million square feet of space nationally. About a quarter of that is in Washington. Some of that space is leased, but most is owned by the federal government. And finally, President Biden's staunchly pro-Israel stance has turned off some young voters who increasingly side with Palestinians in the Middle East conflict. Jeff Murdoch and Tom Howe report they're angry that the president has sent weapons to Israel and with what they say is insufficient humanitarian aid to the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. They're also frustrated the president hasn't called for a ceasefire. Although young voters became disillusioned with President Biden before war erupted in the Middle East, their frustration has accelerated in the past month as pro-Palestinian demonstrations take hold on college campuses. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on social media at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.